So even if you decided to leave us in EU alone a few years ago, hope it's still relevant, even if we are a bit out of EU right now. So my name is Paulina. I'm originally Polish, but moved to Denmark 11 years ago. I have ADHD, so I do a lot of different stuff, from consulting, teaching, writing a book, speaking, running podcasts, doing triathlons, living between 3 countries, having some animals, but from tech perspective, I'm in tech for last 10 years, started from flying drones and automating more hardware stuff all the way to DevOps platform and different companies. I've been in around 20 organizations over the years or even more. I probably forgot about some. And I'm self-employed and consulting different companies and organizations with different problems, primarily within platform, DevOps, cloud native. But going back to the topic and not boring you with information about me, why are we talking even about EU regulations? Probably many of you are working with EU market, even if you are not yourself within the EU market. And one of the regulations which is already around for quite a few years is GDPR, and majority of organizations needs to be compliant for it in EU. And if we don't know what it's about money. So you have to pay a lot of fines, and you can see it raised a lot versus what was it in 2018 to 2023. And the same principle goes with all other regulations which is coming into place. And EU put quite a bit of effort to regulate IT more and more, from data to AI to SRE and so on. So choose your fighter, choose your Pokemon. Even if you're not required to oblige to the particular one, you're probably required to oblige to the other one if you're within the EU market. So today's we're gonna talk about AI Act. We have AI hype, everyone is talking AI, everyone wanna put AI in everything pretty much right now. We have NIS2, which is network security. We have Data Act, very closely connected to AI Act, but a bit different context. We have DORA for resiliency, and we have DCA for platform moderation. And stakes are high. We're talking money. Up to 7% of the global revenue, so it can be quite a lot, especially for the big players. It can become, your code or your entities can become into court cases and so on. It might be audited also by the external. Well, but it worked in dev or it worked on my machine, it's not relevant anymore. And 3 a.m. on call, right now it needs to be documented. What have you done? How did you deal with your incident? And how ready you are for it in case it would need to be used in the legal outcome. So we don't want to end up in a situation like this when we are on fire and everything is fine. But your advantage, we all good in tech, we can prepare for it. We can automate what we can. There are certain tools and some companies which are looking into, okay, how can we do compliance as a code? And don't worry about it. As we know, as a tech people, we are not too interested in legal stuff, as we find it quite boring when we solve problems. And good thing, you can justify your monitoring budget finally to your boss. So first on the list, it's AI Act. We're talking about what is AI and how regulated AI is. So yeah, time to lawyer up. And AI Act came into life last year in August. Then we have some stuff which came in August this year, and it's fully going into force from next year. But what does it actually mean? Well, we have certain labels which are coming with it, and what is recommended to each category of the stuff, depending where your system is. And one concern for red dots is usually required by the particular thing, and blue ones is gonna be recommended. But it's my opinion. I'm not a legal person, so whatever you take with it, I don't take responsibility for it. That's my learnings and that's my opinions, what I got out of it. We have some audit trails. We have some requirements for human in the loop and registry docs. And we're coming with the definition on papers, what is the AI system. And it's quite complex. We don't want to deal with it. What does it mean for us as an engineer? So any software that learns or adapts in production to influence the outcome in simplification, that's treated as an AI model. Why does it matter? Well, you now must treat your model code as you treat your API services. So you need to being able to put it in a whole software lifecycle. So you need to version it, you need to figure out what data does it fit, what data does it train, what do you put in, what do you put out, so whole logging around it, and being able to review what is in production, how do you use it, what version do you use of it, and what's inside as it might be outdated. So EU came up with particular categories. So you have 4 categories for AI models or for AI systems. You have unacceptable risk, you have high risk, limited risk, and low risk. And depending on in which category your system is, you're going to have a different type of fines and different regulations for each. But a good thing, 80% of the stuff is in the low risk. So usually, and that's a bit not that rough. So unacceptable risk, it's anything like human scoring. You cannot do or reading emotions and saying, okay, this ad or something. So you cannot do this. And that's completely, for example, forbidden. Or you cannot do health scoring. So there's certain stuff which are completely forbidden, and you are not allowed to develop it under any circumstances. High risk categories. So for example, HR screening, health, anything health related, that's also in the high risk category. Smart traffic light system. So you have certain use cases which goes with it. And here we have risk assessment, logs, docs, and the human in the loop. So that's a bit more than the best practices which we usually have under the law. Before it, we have limited risk, we have chatbots, deepfakes, and a few others. What do we need? Well, again, logs. Being able to put any notices, so what does it come with it? What is the risk? What is the consequences of it? And good thing to put some explanations if you can, highly recommend it, so user knows the consequences of it. And then we have low risk, and that's 80% of the systems itself. So probably you need to follow this for majority of the cases. So comply with the baseline security, comply with the GDPR, with access to the data for the users, for logging. But of course, it's good to have SRE, it's good to have a DevOps, it's good to have all the basics intact, which we usually, even if we think so, we usually don't have. After working in many organizations, I haven't seen SRE and DevOps done correct. And there is more, as to everything. We have risk management, we have data governance, we have documentation, we have human oversight. Also, from where our data comes from, which we train it, which data do we use for training? Are we allowed to do it? Is it, for example, do we have concern? Because, for example, with Data Act, we have also stuff that the user owns their data. So they might not consent. They need to be able to consent to train your AI on the data. And we have human oversight requirements. Some of the stuff are not very well specified also, so it's a lot up to interpretation as it's legal, it's not tech. So it can be, up to interpretation, how do you understand the particular regulation that might be different, how it's applied as well. Simple recommendation, identify what do you have, what AI systems do you have, and where do they classify? Classify the risk levels. If you have legal in your team also, try to get it with them, because very often that's the interpretation which your company needs to follow. Get logging, get documentation, and for most, we have human access. Of course, you can have the best processes and settings or tools tech stack, but you need to also get a skill set and knowledge across your team, or anything you do, it doesn't gonna get followed and implemented. And you can also ask for external compliance review or the internal one to being able to see, are you compliant? Next. So one player done, we have few to go. You got NIS 2. So new iteration of network security for modern age after NIS 1. But what's new? Well, so the scope got a bit extended. What is under the critical infrastructure compared to NIS 1? We have 24-hour reporting window. So for example, for incidents, that's gonna be, we're gonna have different timeline depending on the different regulations. But if you're compliant to one, you might be as well compliant to the other one. So you might to figure out to what you need to be compliant and which regulations you need to follow. So it's right now you are also regulated by law. What do we need to follow in case of incident? Well, supply chain security, so you are also responsible for what you are using in your dependencies. So not only for your own, but also for whatever dependencies you are using. And board accountability. So we're coming with the accountability for the higher regulations as well. And that came into life last year. But who's compliant? That's a question also who needs to be compliant to it. So you already covered if you have more than 50 employees or 10 millions in the revenue or more, your services affects more than your internal team only, you use internet. So that's when it's pretty much anyone. But what's new? SaaS providers, cloud infrastructure, so majority of us usually, digital service providers, and even if you're a startup, it doesn't make you not required for it if you fulfill the requirements. So it doesn't matter sometimes what size of the company, if you fulfill particular requirement, even if you're a small company, you still are obliged to go follow this. What do we have here with the incident response? We have timeline, which comes, so we have 24 hours for initial warning. We have 1 month to get a bit more detailed report and to put the final report after 2 months. We have requirement for centralized logging and for the security, which can be audited. But as you can see, there's someone want to take a picture. Let's give it a second. Another thing, you might be required, you're required to have a formal way of handling the incident and be prepared for it. Good practice is to have a legal observer in some cases, especially if you know it can be escalated moving on. That's a good recommendation to get an external or legal observer in some cases. But you need to be, you need to define how you handle the incident if it happens. So, and what war room, how you can handle it. There's particular scenarios also which you need to be prepared for. So, there's some required scenarios which we have to handle. We have APT, attack simulations. We have supply chain compromise. We have cloud provider outage. Very good example from yesterday is AWS case. And also with the, I think, political situations in our region that might be more and more required. We have insider threat and frequency. And we are required to do regular testing. Probably most of you done DORA tests for particular use case, or well, like production out, what do we do? And what's the process when we handle it? But to don't make it boring, you can gamify it. You can do quarterly, or you can make fun and games, or maybe divided, change the roles. So try to make it fun to your team so it's not only sad requirement which we have to follow. Then we have Data Act. So your user's data is actually their data, not yours. What does it mean? Well, it came to life this year, and your user data, users own their data. You don't own them. Data must be portable. So your user needs to be able to get their data easily and quite fast. So for example, you can put the API, which they can download data, or they can get requests, you can send it to the email. Depends how much data you also store, what kind of data. Sorry. And you are not able to get them vendor locked. Who needs to actually share the data? IoT devices, mobile apps, SaaS platforms, cloud services. So again, a lot of different use cases, not everyone, but many of us will be under it. But pretty much, if it generates user data, you're obliged. You need to be able, similarly as we can get our data from Facebook or any other big social media, big tech, it's the same if you are even doing small info where you use users' data. And it comes with some response time requirement. It needs to be in the real time. It needs to be reasonable time. You cannot get your users waiting for weeks and weeks over to being able to get their data. And they need to be able to get permission to get access to your data. You need your users to approve usage of the data. As you can see, that's also required for GDPR. So we have a lot of crossings between particular law or particular regulations. You can, for example, you need to be able to provide user portal or being able to get them UI which they can get their data from. But you can make it more user-friendly or you can make it more harder for them. As we know, you sometimes need to do 30, 40 clicks to being able to get the user's data, what can be quite annoying to being able to actually get it or being able to delete it. API. You're required to expose some APIs, endpoints for users, for example. Get the users, get the logins, get the devices they logged in. It needs to be in the JSON format. DORA, another one. Not the Explorer, not the Google one. This time we set one from EU. Again, that came into life this year. And primary focus is banking and critical infrastructure here. So the idea is so any critical infrastructure should have more formalized SRE. As we have some incidents as outage, for example, we have Nets outage in Denmark earlier this year, you couldn't, and in the country where you almost don't have cash, it's quite crucial to being able to have payment systems which actually works. So you have banks, payment processors, insurance, even crypto exchanges. In some cases, cloud hosting, SaaS, again, as we even had yesterday incident with AWS, you can suddenly see how many different companies are hosted on AWS, or who is there. Is it, I think it was also PayPal, Training Peaks, Snapchat, and yeah, but Kubernetes is in it as well very often, as that's the infrastructure underlying of it. What actually comes with it? So we have resilience testing, we have third-party risk management, incident reporting. Again, we have incident reporting. We're getting boring with it, but that's where we get security as well. And business continuity plan. So what happens if actually you go down? How can we handle it? How can we get business going on with it? So the goal pretty much is to ensure that all EU financial entities and the critical IT systems provide, withstand and respond and recover to any IT disruptions. And yeah, so it matters because pretty much we are not able to operate as a society without banking and online banking and any regulatory for our payments or any financial processes. What does it mean a bit more in practice? So we have risk management, documentation, we have operational resilience. So it might be chaos engineering, it might be other way of testing but it's mandatory in some way. Incident reporting. Again, you need to be able to report what happened, how that was it handled, how you were prepared for it, as it might be audited in any case. Third-party risk. Your vendors is your responsibility. So checking your vendors and being able to follow up also what's going on there is your responsibility. Threat intelligence. So know what's going on, if there is outage, if there is something what you can prepare of, if there is any, for example, any risk. For example, recently there was the NPM package, I think, going on. And there was, for example, you should rotate, besides doing certain stuff, you should rotate all the passwords. I've seen that some of the customers, it's very complex topic to being able to rotate passwords in production. And if you have, for example, 500 of them, you don't have next 3 months to rotate all the passwords manually and so on. Have an automation for it and have a process for it, even if it's more complex task. So suddenly we have the task to being able to automate password rotation in all 500 places. So basics like this matter in these cases. So we have certain inventory and risk classification, risk assessment. So figure out what is needed, do the scan analysis, what risk can come with your code base and with your solutions. Policy as a code, well, some stuff you can enforce. You can enforce what environment your developers work with, what is allowed, what is not, by controlling the environment or controlling whatever they are working with. Mandatory tests. So we have some vulnerability scanning as a mandatory. We have digital operational resilience exercises also as a mandatory. Chaos engineering, that's optional. I haven't seen it done in many places, to be honest, in the full scope. Recovery time and recovery point objectives. So we are required to also document it. How fast are we able to recover? And what is recovery point? Also, good way, keep your data in backups. What is, again, basics, but required. And reporting, what are the test plans? How do we handle the incident? What did we learn? Are mandatory as well moving forward. Incident reporting, here we have a bit different timing than in the other one, but it's pretty much as soon as possible, not later than the next business day. Then we have 3 business days for the detailed report, and then we have 1 month for the full report here for the incident. And what is in the legal records here? Kubernetes event, control plane audit logs. We have runbooks, we have post-mortems as well. So we have a lot of stuff which we are working with, which might be required. So again, check if you are required to be compliant for the particular thing. Vendor risk assessment. So there is right to audit for the data residency and the incident notifications. So we had a lot of talks, I think, also with what is going with the US. Where are our data? Is it in EU? Is it in our country? Where do we store our data? It used to be the discussion, but it's even more discussion these days, right now, connected to it. You can also subscribe to some EU certs, so to being able to follow up what are the threats. It's quite good database. You can have more to follow depending what tools that are using. Very often they update their own databases as well if you do a particular scanning. And last, not least, we have DSA. What do we do here and from when? So last year it came into life. Who's covered? So in shortage, big tech. So we have social media, marketplaces, cloud platforms, or internal tools. But threshold is quite big. We have 45 million users plus. So that's quite big for EU market. I think we are similar to US in the size, I think around 300 million. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's where. But pretty much marketplaces, social media, cloud services, or internal users with user-generated content. So social media, if you post, or that's everything covered. But the threshold for how many users you need to have, it's quite big. So that's pointed into big tech primarily. So pretty much any service which exposing users' provided data falls into it. And again, logging every action. Metrics, getting monthly reports, providing access to the regulators and to the users. Again, content moderation, policy rules, failing fast, tag and forward. But Being able to get user that they can get their data, so similar as under Data Act. And again, SLA reinforcement, but we're getting a bit out of time, so I'm gonna speed up a bit. But again, requirement, logs, interface, and storage for the data moderation. But the one thing I wanna also you to remember is that a lot of them are overlapping. So you might be required to be compliant to more than one of them, but in some cases, if you are compliant to one, very easily you can be compliant to the other one. So here we have example of AI Act, Data Act, and Data Governance Act, and they talking all about data from a bit different angles. So you have, okay, how do we share the data? How do we make data available within EU? And how do we operate within AI systems in the ethical and safe way? So you have cross-regulations compliance here. So you have all the acts and you look into repeating stuff. As I mentioned, repeated myself many times over last 30 minutes. So logging, monitoring, governance, incidents, resilience and testing, APIs and data, having it available. So as you can see, we have a lot of repetition. So logging, 4 out of 5. Monitoring, 3 out of 5. Governments, 4 out of 5. API and data, here are a bit different. And of course, the requirement might be a bit different for each, but it's good to see that, you know, a lot of them are considering the same stuff from a bit different angles. And we have some which are only considered by one. So for example, we have resilience and testing. That's primarily covered by DORA. But there is a but. I didn't cover all the stuff which are coming from EU. You have some which are coming for cryptocurrencies. You have CSA. So there's more regulations. So even if it's not covered by this, you might have some stuff which are covered by the other ones. So again, check what you need to be compliant to. There are some tools. For example, recently I was advising on the Cloud Genie. They are looking into this thing as one of them. So there are tools which can make your easy by scanning you, for example. Of course, you need to set what you need to be compliant to. But then, for example, they are scanning your code base and they telling you, okay, you need to correct this, and this to being able to be compliant for the particular things. Not everything are mature very much, but we are getting there to being able to make our life easier with it and being able to automate as much as possible in this case as well. But it's good to be aware of it, that we have to know a bit, or to being able to even put it on the planning phase, like, hey, what do we need to think when we plan the features, when we expand our features? What are the requirements? Do we need a lock? Do we need to what data do we need to give access to our users to being able to download them? So there's a few things which I would like you to think a bit earlier in the process than later on. And there are more coming. So yeah, now we're looking into AI Act, Data Act, and some guidance, but you have Cyber Resilience Acts coming. You have ADAS, you have Platform to Business, you have AI liability, you have quantum safe, sustainability. So there is a lot coming. And you are not the only one which are coming to talking about it. You have similar stuff in US, you have Australia, you have Canada, you have UK as well. So it depends where are you looking for, or some companies might choose to go with more strict regulations across the globe, even if it's more liberal in the other ones. So you might follow it already, even if it's not required for everything. So there are some questions which you can ask within your team that can be useful. So some few key takeaways. So all touch what we are working with. Don't be scared of getting logging, human in the loop, and APIs to being able to expose your data users. And don't be scared of it. Try to automate it as we've done with everything else. Just learn about it and remember a bit more than you used to beforehand. And the best one is to being able to, so your users shouldn't really worry about it. Thank you.